Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus main review. Today we're going to be taking a look at Wrestlemania, which is more commonly referred to as its console title, Wrestlemania the arcade game. This game was released in 1995. To be exact, it was August 10th of 1995 in the arcade. And if you're not familiar with this game, the easiest way to describe it is that it is basically a fighting game. A fighting wrestling game, if you will. It's not anything similar to any wrestling games you may have played, like, if you've ever played any of the 3D games. And of course, it goes without saying that you'll see already that, this is made by Midway, so it feels a lot like Mortal Kombat. In fact, even in the credits, as you'll see later, Ed Boon and John Tobias are thanked for this. And of course, this features a lot of the talent of the time, like Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Doink the Clown, Bam Bam Bigelow, Lex Luger. And the way that it works is when you do the Intercontinental Championship, which I've selected this time, you do 4 singles matches, 2 2-on-1 handicap matches, and what's called the, I think it's called the Battle Royal in this. It's a 3-on-1 handicap match, whereas in the world title mode, you do 4 2-on-1 matches, 2 3-on-1 matches, and what's called the Wrestlemania Challenge, which starts out as a 3-on-1 match, and as each opponent gets eliminated or defeated, another player takes his place, which then causes it keeps being a 3-on-1 match until you defeat all 8 characters in the game, as you can see them displayed there, which also includes Yokozuna and Bam Bam Bigelow. Strangely enough, when this got ported to the home market, of course we had our Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo versions in 1995, but the thing that I find strange is that the Super Nintendo version, as opposed to most games where Super Nintendo would shine a bit better than Genesis because a little bit of the hardware is a bit more beefier, but the Super Nintendo version, they didn't have Bam Bam Bigelow or Yokozuna, and there was only 3 characters could be on screen at once, not the 4 in this one or any of the other versions. And the game slows down awfully bad, and it lacks a lot of the commentary samples and stuff, and I just find that weird that the Super Nintendo version is really lacking. And basically the way a match works is once you get your opponent's health all the way down, you can pin them. Although if it's the second fall, if you're doing 2 of 3, they can get a second win by using their combo meter to get more another go at it, which basically gives them like 1 or 2 more hits, and then you defeat them again. So it's kind of cool if it's a really close match, and I've mentioned it a billion times in these main reviews already, but I'm not a fan of mirror matches, and I'm honestly surprised that I got through this one without getting defeated. But back to the console ports I was mentioning earlier. After you had your simple 16 and 32X version, which I know a lot of people don't really count as 32-bit. After that, there was the Sony PlayStation version, which also happened to be in 1995, and the Sega Saturn version in 1996, along with the MS-DOS version finally in 1997 for your computers. Now, of course, these versions were a bit better than the other ones, the earlier consoles, but they still had like some problems. There was no in-game music, as you can hear the music in the background when this matches. It just makes the game feel a bit better instead of having a silent thing with everybody yelling in the background. And of course the sprites were a little bit smaller and not as sharp, but from what I understand it was a little bit better than the other versions of the game. But personally for me, I played a lot of the Sega Genesis version, which I can honestly say, even though it might not be like arcade perfect, it's pretty close. And from what I understand, the 32X version is even a little bit better, but sadly that version of the game gets taken down to 30 frames per second instead of 60 of the other versions. And I remember when I was young, I was like, I was like so amazed by this game, thinking they finally took wrestling and made it into like a fighting game. Oh, and another fun fact is that the wrestlers were going to originally have like fatality finisher moves, like Mortal Kombat, but of course once the WWF heard about that, they kind of put the kibosh on that. Although I hear that there is a way in certain versions of the game to get the Undertaker's fatality where the person goes into a casket and sinks down into the ring. But if you really enjoyed this game, another game that's highly recommended is the PlayStation and Sega Saturn exclusive game, never got an arcade release, was WWF In Your House, or as I tend to call it, Wrestlemania, the arcade game 2, because it's basically like this game, but it has newer characters like Ahmed Johnson in it, and it has, it's like fully optimized for the Sony PlayStation. But as you can see, the pants that Shawn Michaels is wearing in this match are different from the others, because I can honestly tell you, I've actually stitched this playthrough together from like several different plays I was doing here, because this is one of those many games, kind of like Killer Instinct, that if you haven't played it in a while, you kind of get really rusty. And even to get as good as I had gotten in this gameplay, it took me a while of like trial and error of trying to do certain things and learning how the game works again. It's one of those games that once you get down the flow, you get a bit better, but even at that, I had to turn the difficulty down 1 or 2 notches just to do as good as I'm doing here. And what was cool is I had some wrestling tapes where there actually was some strategies, and one of the strategies, Bam Bam Bigelow actually delivered himself, and he told you all his moves and everything. I thought that was really cool. And now here's one of those handicap matches I was telling you about. And if you're not familiar with some of these wrestlers, I remember when I was watching wrestling when I was really young, just about all these wrestlers were wrestlers in it. And I remember, I think it was Razor Ramon and Bam Bam Bigelow were allies, and eventually Bam Bam Bigelow went away, and 1-2-3 Kid was kind of Razor Ramon's ally until he turned to Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Corporation. I can honestly say, all the early wrestling storylines, I really loved them myself, and I enjoyed them a lot when I was young, and you know, after a while, I can honestly say that, like, with the PG era and everything, as they call it in wrestling, it got kind of boring, but I'd say back in the day, it really was a fun thing. And of course, another fun fact about WrestleMania, the arcade game here, is that another wrestler by the name of Adam Bomb was actually supposed to be a hidden character, but he actually ended up not being in the game because he was like far from completed, and from what I understand, they wanted to just get the game out and released, which it would have been cool if they had finished this character and added him to the console versions even. And if you remember at the time, if you were around when this game was first new, is that the biggest omission to this game was Diesel, who was actually champion when the game got released. But of course, when the game was in development, when it first started filming, Yokozuna was actually WWF champion, so they figured, hey, we got the champion. But by the time this came out a little bit later, Yokozuna dropped the title to Diesel, and everyone was wondering why Diesel wasn't there. And apparently, they were saying that there was something about how they didn't like how Diesel looked, so they didn't include him into the game. And the whole WWF Championship thing wouldn't become a matter, as I said, he just wasn't champion at the time. And of course, the biggest complaint that everybody had is that there just simply weren't enough wrestlers, at only 8 wrestlers, considering, if you've ever watched WWF, you could see that there's at any given time, there's a ton of wrestlers, so there were so many to choose from. And it goes without saying, the thing that makes this game so great, other than its apparent fighting game style, is all the crazy moves that the wrestlers do. If you notice, like, the way the game works is you have a punch, kick, power punch, and power kick, plus your block button. your punch and kick are just traditional punches and kicks, whereas your power punch will often do something special to that character. Like with Shawn Michaels, for some reason, he brings out a bat and he starts swinging his bat at people. I think Yokozuna has this thing where he has like a box of some sort and he starts hitting people with it. And then like you'll see Doink the Clown has that thing where his hands get big and he hits you with them, and he has that hammer thing. And if you do a quarter circle forward and the regular kick button, Shawn Michaels does a 3 combination of his, what he called, sweet chin music, as he called it at the time. And of course it goes without saying, but when you have these like handicap matches, the key to them is to get rid of one of the guys first, and then just basically eliminate them as quickly as you possibly can. And one thing that's funny is the first time I got to the 3-way match here is it was Doink the Clown, and Doink the Clown, but of course I lost that match, so I cut that out. But I just found it funny that it was like a triple match of 3 of the same person, which is really crazy, but I'd say not as bad as certain characters. Like, I always found Bam Bam Bigelow and Yokozuna to be a little bit overpowered. Maybe that's why they figured taking them out of the SNES version wasn't a big deal. But yeah, Wrestlemania the arcade game is a really good wrestling/fighting game, and it really combines the wrestling and the fighting together well. As you can see, you can still do like a head hold and then do a move out of that, but each wrestler only has maybe about 5 or 6 moves that come out of that. And then of course you have your combo, which is usually triggered by a certain combination of buttons. And then there's that second wind I was telling you about, but then it's carried on by hitting them in sequence. Sadly, I never achieved the 20-hit combo in here, because I never got the block button hit at the right time. And now here's where you get the championship title. And of course it's telling you to go through for the world title, and that's another thing that got removed from the Super NES version, was these those actual endings for some reason, which is another thing that doesn't make a ton of sense. And it wasn't until I saw some of the names in here that you could have a longer name, like Jason. I was thinking, hey, how come Jason could have a longer name? And I figured, oh, maybe it wasn't 3 letters. But I'm so used to 3 letters in like arcade games that I just more or less think that's how it goes. But yeah, Wrestlemania the arcade game is an excellent game on any system you play it on, and I highly recommend it for wrestling fans or even fighting game fans. It's just one of those games that you should give a try because it's just a fun game, and especially with friends and with the multiplayer modes, it's a real good time. Well, this has been another Game Nexus Mame review, and I shall see you later. Bye.